Hey guys, Ben Paynes here, and today we are back once again for another Monday night social at Teamsport Bristol. Now, before we get into the video, if you do enjoy it, could you please leave a like, as it really does benefit me and I really do appreciate it. And if you could also subscribe if you're new to the channel, as I do upload weekly and I try to be as informative as possible in each of the videos that I put out. However, as we get into the session here that you are watching, this was my first time doing a social event on the brand new tyres, and here you can see immediately I was going really slow, and this was in fact the third session out of 3, and I was going really slow here. As you can see, a 41.222 to start off with, and this was because I was allowing one of the lighter and faster drivers that had done really well in the first 2 sessions to just get ahead of me and try and allow me to follow their lines as they go around the track. And there you can see me just waving them in front, and I let the driver ahead there in kart 17 to go past me and try and set some good lap times that I can follow. And you can see here straight away that they absolutely bombed it down the ramp, and that was detriment to being almost half my weight, which is of course is my key complaint and my key excuse for being a little bit slower than some of the younger guys. You can see straight away over 39.512. Of course, that did involve me letting the driver ahead pass, and now we tried to get into some quicker lap times. There wasn't any blistering 36-second laps or 37. You can see there me waving them ahead to tell them that I do want to stay behind and keep on their tail. But as I said, there was no blistering lap times, but there were a few lap times that I was very happy with, especially due to the circumstances of the fresh new tyres and the lack of grip that they actually have on the track whilst you're going around. You can see here we go across the line and we're immediately on a 38.241, which is a very quick time and only 2/10 off of my fastest lap from the Thursday night session where we performed the Chase the Ace race. And therefore I was really happy. I really wanted to build on this there, once again just telling the driver ahead to push forward and push ahead, and I was really able to stay as smooth as possible on the pedals and try and keep the kart in a nice flowing state rather than sliding out on the back end, drifting much like it has been in other sessions recently where I've pressed the pedals too hard and this has caused the tyres to spin up and I've lost a lot of grip. And now once again we're 38.479. We did lose a lot of time coming out of the second hairpin on the top section of the track. Here I was really trying to maximise my exit speed coming out of the bottom hairpin as well, really trying to slide it in and adjust to the different driving style that I was required to take, and then sort of follow the slip angle through the corner so that I gain as much grip as possible. Here once again, as I've mentioned previously in videos before, I was trying to take a bit more of a wider line going into the second hairpin, as I really was losing time around that second hairpin and then consequently the last corner. Once more we're 38.396, so almost at a 38.4 once more. The times are remaining in a low 38 state, which I was very happy with. And you can see here the driver in blue up ahead waving past the driver ahead of me, and this is another driver in my weight category, and we did in fact have very similar times by the end of the session, which of course is a good thing as it keeps the weight category very competitive in terms of the BIKC, which we are still trying to get some good lap times in to qualify for. However, with these new tyres it is really difficult to actually set any laps that are sort of alongside any of the old faster laps that I used to get in the low 37 or 36 second laps. Instead we are actually stuck at 38 seconds, and I've been unable to actually get into the 37 second mark yet on the new tyres, and this is something that I really want to aim for in the next few sessions. You can see the driver ahead going down the inside there, Chris Love, and I took a little bit of a wider line, slowed it down and got the kart turned in a lot quicker, and this allowed me to go past him as well and follow through the driver ahead. And you can see another driver just going a little bit wide and trying to keep in the pack of 4 karts that is now ahead of us. So you have 3 ahead of me and myself, so there's 4 of us going around in a similar fashion, which of course benefited all of us as we were all taking the same lines and able to get the same exit speed out of the more tight and complex corners, such as the bottom hairpin. Here I looked for the inside to try and get past the driver in the black suit, however he was able to shut the door, and therefore I did have to remain behind them. I took a little bit of a wider line there to try and get a better exit out of the second hairpin on the top section, but instead I was still stuck behind them. Here they went a little bit wide and I looked for the inside there down the main straight, but unfortunately I was unable to find a way through there. Once again looking for the inside, but I thought better of it, as I thought there would be a little bit of a collision if I tried diving it down the inside there. Here, still sticking behind them, trying to get a better exit out of the bottom hairpin by using the slip angle as I mentioned earlier, and in fact I was able to get past them quite easily going up the ramp even before I was halfway up the ramp. And now I was trying to focus on the driver ahead. As mentioned before, they are in the same weight category as me for the BIKC, and therefore I wanted to put in some faster lap times than the driver ahead. This was really good for me because I was able to use them as a marker to try and catch up to and really follow their lines and see how they were escaping my oncoming attack. As you can see there, through the bottom section I was able to close up quite a lot, and also through the hairpin I did have a little bit of a slide, but I was able to catch up. You can see they were a little bit disappointed going up the ramp with their exit, and I think we were both a little bit upset with the tyres and how they were gripping on the track, which we found quite difficult. Once again the driver ahead shaking his head. As you can see, I am closing up more and more through the bottom right hander. I'll really have close up to the back of them now. You can see in the top left that as we cross the line we're now at a 38.372, so we haven't quite caught up to our fastest lap of the session yet, which was right at the beginning. I was really surprised by this, as usually I find myself getting better and better as the session goes on, but there once more just going a little bit too deep and actually end up hitting the driver ahead of me, which gives him a little bit of propulsion up the ramp, and I had to instead bog down and had to make up the time that I previously made up in the following laps. We can see here once again coming round the bottom right hander, we're staying very tight and trying to stay as smooth as possible on each of the pedals. We come across the line now with a 38.940, so a bit of a slower lap there, and this was detriment to not having as much grip as I've mentioned, and coming into the bottom hairpin once again just bogging down a little bit too much, hitting the brakes a little bit too hard. I think that the person ahead also realised that they made a mistake once again, and if you bog down on that bottom hairpin, then you really do find that you struggle to get up the ramp, especially as I am around 82 or 81 kilos. It means that the cart bogs down. It might not be a lot of bog down like you would get if you were, say, 100 kilos, but it's still very difficult in comparison to some of the lighter drivers in the weight category, and also lighter drivers in general that are around 65, 60 kilograms, or even the younger drivers that are in the cadet and junior categories, as they're able to get some fast times. There I tried sending it down the inside of the driver ahead, and instead he lets me go past as he notices that I was a little bit faster than him on the previous few laps, and therefore I think that he wanted to tag along behind me and follow my lines and see how he could improve. So we did a little bit of switch of roles here, and I really wanted to try and pull away if I could, and there coming across line with 38.863, obviously slowing down in the bottom hairpin, performing the overtake. But as mentioned, I did want to try and pull away here, so I wanted to set some pretty quick and clean laps, getting as tight as I could to the apex there, and you saw almost sliding through the second half of the hairpin, trying to get the slip angle right, and once again getting as tight as possible along the fast right hander at the top of the track there, getting wide enough on both hairpins there to try and maximise the space on the track and stay as tight as possible once again on the bottom right hander. But unfortunately I was sliding around quite a bit, and I wasn't able to stay as consistent as I'd like to. You see there 38.336, so the times are a lot faster than they have been being behind the driver that was now behind me. However, it's still not even as fast as my fastest lap, which was at the beginning of the session on about lap 2 or 3, and this is something that I felt in myself as I realised that I got off to a really good start being behind one of the faster drivers for the session, but instead now, as we got around halfway through the session, or just past halfway, I found that I was struggling. It was also a very, very hot evening, which meant that levels of fatigue for all drivers was extremely high. However, we were able, like usual, to start motoring on and getting some faster lap times as we progressed with the session. We can see there our last lap was a 38.117, so we are getting a lot closer to a 37-second lap time, which was my goal for this evening. And do you reckon we'll get it? We'll see by the end of the video. But here, looking for a driver ahead of me and really trying to tag along behind them. I was using them as a marker at this point to try and catch up and hopefully overtake them before the end of the session. As I said, the driver behind me was actually managing to tag along pretty well with me, and even on a couple of occasions on the laps they were giving me a tiny little love tap on the back of my car just to let me know that they were there, but not enough for me to go wide or for me to want to swap places with them. You could see there straight away looking back, so presumably there was a little love tap on the bottom section as I did go a tiny bit wide on the bottom hairpin. And here once again just trying to get as tidy as possible, try and maintain that gap and try and catch up to the car ahead of me, getting as tight as I can to that first apex and the second one, and then maximising the exit, trying to go as straight as possible, even leaning forward to maximise my speed and velocity down the straight, which does result in a 38.289, which still isn't quite into the 37-second mark. And we are approaching the driver ahead of us. We are managing to close up every lap, especially through bottom hairpin, getting a better run, leaning forward a little bit there again, much like I did a couple of weeks ago, to try and minimise the low amounts of wind resistance that do take effect inside of the track. And here once more trying to get as tight as possible, but really messing up with the amount of speed I carried into the corner there, so I did go a little bit wide and therefore I didn't get as fast laps as I hoped. And although that was the case, it was a 38.170, so if I was able to hook up that last corner a little bit better, then that probably would have been a 37-second lap. But alas, we move on, and looking back once more, so some more love taps from being a little bit slower in the bottom section than I'm used to, and trying to get as tight as possible once again to the top two hairpins, moving to the left a little bit more, but unfortunately not hooking it up as much as I want to, and this allows the driver ahead of me to pull away once more. But we are able to really close up the gap around the last corner, and you can see the driver ahead is getting closer and closer, and my times are getting lower and lower, 38.145, so we really are cementing ourselves in the 38.1 second category. I just really wanted to get down into the 37 seconds. Obviously when you're driving around you can't actually tell what the time is, but I felt at this point in the session I did have a little bit of a second wind, and this resulted in me having a few faster laps in comparison to what I had at the beginning and in the middle of this session. So once again coming down quite fast down the ramp, getting it quite tight and quite smooth round the last corner, really closing up to the person ahead of me, and that resulted in a 38.055 second lap, so really close now, half a tenth off of being in the 37-second mark. We're really close up to the person ahead of me, and I even send it down the inside as I wanted to really work on overtaking on that bottom hairpin and trying to make sure that when it comes to a Thursday session I'm not really afraid to dive it down the inside on some of the elite member drivers, as I still think that there is a little mental block for me at the moment in a race situation where I don't really like to lunge it down the inside of some of the other drivers on track. You can see here we come across the line and we get a 38.475, so a little bit slower on that lap, but that was not something that I was worried about, as the driver behind me remained behind me and I didn't find that I was going slow enough for them to try and force an overtake to go back through. So although I wasn't actually maintaining a gap and they were right behind me, they weren't actually feeling confident enough to dive down the inside and try and take control of the situation once again. So there once more, I haven't mentioned, but I was trying to take a little bit of a different line into the top two hairpins by flicking my hand into the corner rather than driving slowly just to see if it worked and try and maintain the slip angle, but instead it didn't seem to help as much as I thought it would. However, as I am rambling on, what you are watching now is in fact the fastest lap of the session by myself. You can see really getting a good entrance and exit into the bottom hairpin and able to maximise my speed up the ramp and try and keep as tight as possible into the right hander, where I was able to actually go flat out through there, getting as tight as I could to the top 2 hairpins. And following this driver down the hill, I really wanted to try and get as close as possible, once again using them as a marker, able to really get tight to the apex, and we come across the line with a 38 dead. So unfortunately I wasn't able to actually get a 37-second lap, although I was very happy with a 38 dead, and I couldn't get any more close to a 37-second lap if I tried. The lap you are watching now, as I do go for an overtake on Mr. Chris Love once again, is in fact the last recorded lap of the session, as the wind down lap and my final lap seemed to corrupt in the footage, which I was a little bit upset about. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this video, guys, and I hope there has been informative. Obviously the times have been a little bit slower. As always, if you do want to follow me on Instagram, I have left it in the description below. Please leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more in the future, as I upload on a weekly basis. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.